Hi there, it's Josh Fox here, designer of Flotsam, Adrift Amongst the Stars. I thought might be helpful to create a quick video just to explain how the game works for those who are wondering. It's pretty simple. I don't want to go through the kind of 101 on how you do role playing, but just to make clear what kind of role playing we do here. In Flotsam, some of you will be playing your primary character, which it means you're going to say what they say and do and respond to each other. Some of you will be playing your situation, which is kind of like a GM in another game. You describe what NPCs, secondary characters, are saying and doing. You describe what's going on in the world, and you sort of hint at threats that might be coming that might affect the primary characters. And all of that's just done really easy just by talking, saying each little thing at a time, describing what's happening one step at a time. Nothing particularly complicated about that. So the system kicks in a few places. Firstly, whenever a primary character says that they're going to do something, and somebody around the table thinks that is risky or challenging, then that person is free to jump in with a complication. And a complication is just anything that might make the action a bit harder. You can say, oh, you can do that, but you're going to have to do this other thing first. Oh, you can do that, but it's going to cost you. You can say, actually, you're not able to get quite that far. You're going to achieve something slightly less than what you wanted to, or oh, you'll do it, but here's this unexpected consequence. Those kinds of things where you still get to do what you were planning to do, but it maybe doesn't work out exactly the way that you wanted it to. And you can then, as a primary character, you can get around those complications. If you have a token, and I'll come to how you get tokens in a second, then you can use one of the strengths on your character sheet with a token to nix any complications that have been fired at you. So an example of a strength would be something like that you're a great negotiator, or perhaps you've got some sort of mysterious power. Some of the characters have kind of supernatural abilities. You might be a great fighter, or you might have a resource that is particularly useful, like a gang or a piece of technology. Whatever it is, you have to say how you're using that strength to tackle the situation at hand. And if you spend a token when you do that, then it prevents anybody from adding any complications to your action. You describe what the outcome is, you describe what happens, and nobody gets to intervene. And furthermore, if anybody has already added a complication to something you said, then it retroactively nixes that complication. So strengths are great. Strengths are the way that you, as a primary character, get to dictate the terms of a scene. Okay, what's the converse of that? The converse of that is basically dealing with threats and being pushed onto the back foot. So there's two ways that can happen. One is if a situation player is describing an oncoming threat, something that's developing, something that's on the horizon, and you as the primary characters don't do anything to stop it, or you do something but it doesn't work, then that threat can manifest and affect you directly. So that's bad news. The basic way that works is, in terms of the game flow, is simply you do it gradually. You don't bring out a threat with a big bang. You have to signal what's coming, and you have to do it one little step at a time to give the players a chance to react and to preserve the intended pacing of the game, which is kind of slow and focused on interpersonal drama rather than action. Okay. The other way that it can happen is if a player decides to activate a weakness. So a weakness could come in two forms. There's flaws, which are kind of personal issues. Maybe you're an alcoholic, or maybe you're kind of arrogant. The kind of personal trait that might lead you to do something stupid. Okay, so you do the stupid thing, and that constitutes activating the weakness. You're opening the door for someone to do something unpleasant to you right away. The other kind of weakness is problem. A problem is something external to you, like an enemy, or a terrible reputation that you've got, which might cause people to come and seek you out and cause problems for you directly. Again, you don't have to necessarily do anything to activate that. You just say, I'm activating it. But either way, what you're doing is opening the door for another player to do something that's going to cause problems for you. And crucially, it gives them permission to do that directly without any of the usual gradual build-up that I described a moment ago. In exchange for that, you get a token. Hooray! So that's how you get your tokens. So the basic flow of the game is you converse as your characters. At some point you activate weaknesses to cause yourself problems. That gets you a token. You can later use your strengths with a token to tackle those problems, and thus the circle is complete. Let me talk about one other aspect of the game, which is relationships and flaws. The game is built to develop your character over time. So quite simply, every time in a scene you do something to show who you really are to another character through your words or your deeds, and they see who you really are, then after the scene we'll ask them, did it change your relationship? Did it bring you closer together, push you further apart, or otherwise change your relationship? And if it did, you get to mark the relationship on your character sheet. On a similar sort of way, if one of your weaknesses comes up in a scene and causes you trouble, whether or not you activated it or whether it just came up in play, then you get to mark that weakness. And each weakness or relationship has 3 boxes. When you've marked 3 of those boxes, all 3, then that means that you get to grow in advance. So you erase all of those marks. You can rewrite the weakness or the relationship. So maybe the rivalry that I've had with this other character develops into love. Or maybe the love that I've been feeling for this other person turns to contempt. You know, there's all sorts of possibilities. Similarly, with weaknesses, I can go from having this kind of arrogance as a flaw. I could turn that into some different flaw, or I can maybe even turn it in my favour, maybe turn it into a strength, turn it into confidence. Whatever I do, I will, every time you fill up those 3 boxes and do a rewrite of a trait, you also gain a new strength. So your character is improving, but your character is also changing over time. And that's basically the game on a postcard. You've got two kind of loops that you run through. One is about danger and excitement, which generates tokens for you that you can spend to overcome the danger, and the other is about developing your character over time through revealing who you really are and through finding out how you deal with the adversity caused by your weaknesses. That's the game.